Welcome to the Awakened Collective, where we explore the topics of love, spiritual consciousness, and our divine purpose on this planet. Join us as we uncover the truth that our thoughts shape our reality. Welcome to the Awakened Collective podcast. I'm Rick Gregory, and it is a pleasure to be with you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us, and I want to say thank you, as always, to Audio Alchemy Productions and Daniel Anderson for giving us this fine place with such talent to bring our messages to the world. Thanks, Daniel. And may you be reminded today that you have never been separated from your Creator by whatever name you choose to call your Creator. You are a divine extension of your Creator's love on this planet, and we have never, ever been separated from one another. And I want to tell you about a sponsor of mine this morning. So, episode of the Awakened Collective is brought to you by Blade Slinger, Mississippi Landscape Management Company, my friend Ryan Connor, the owner, operator. And I just have to tell you that they'll do everything. So I love my yard, and I love doing stuff with my yard in the spring and in the summer. But when it comes to the fall and the cleanup, I somehow lose that desire and that energy. So I asked Ryan if he would come by the house that we actually had on the market. And Daniel, by the way, we finally got it under contract. Yep. So I asked Ryan to come by because I have almost a third of my front lawn is a field of azalea bushes. And there were things growing up in there that certainly were not azaleas, along with all my bushes that need to be trimmed. And Ryan came, and it is looking beautiful, better than it has ever looked. And they'll do anything from day-to-day stuff. They will put in small trees and shrubs or remove those things. They do gardening services, weed control. And this is the time of year for it. So if you are needing help with your yard, and they service the Madison, Rankin, and Hinds County areas there in Mississippi, and you can reach out to Ryan Connor at email Ryan R. Connor, RCONNOR, at Bladeslinger, BLADESLINGER.org. And you can also call him at 769-216 8808. Again, that's 769-216-8808. Let him know that Rick sent you. He's a great guy. He'll do a great job. Thanks. And now we have a very special guest this morning. And there's only, I think, been one or two other times that I've had a bio. And I'm so grateful to have this morning, and I want to share it with you. And our amazing guest is Dr. Libby Spence. And Libby Spence received a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Mississippi in 1994. She is a retired professor from the School of Health-Related Professions and a former academic dean for the School of Graduate Studies and the Health and Sciences at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Dr. Spence has over 30 years of teaching experience in clinical and academic settings. Her company, Spence Clinical Consultants, LLC, provides training and regulatory services for medical laboratory personnel. She is a teacher and practitioner of mindfulness and meditation, grounded in the teachings and tradition of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. She has taught mindfulness for health and well-being in many different venues and studied cognitive-based compassion training through the Emory Tibetan Partnership. She has studied mindfulness-based stress reduction, MSBR, developed by John Kabat-Zinn from the Center for Mindfulness in Medicine, Healthcare, and Society at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. That's where I'm from. She is a certified women's circle facilitator trained through Shakti School in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. She is a registered yoga teacher with Yoga Alliance and trained with Saul David Ray at Atma Yoga and Rhythm Healing Arts in California. She is a certified Reiki Level 2 practitioner trained by Reiki for Life in Mississippi, maintaining a personal meditation and yoga practice and dedication to living mindfully is an integral part of her life. She continues to study mindfulness, attend meditation and yoga retreats worldwide, and practices with the local community. Welcome, Dr. Libby Spence. It's so good to have you here this morning. And Libby and I we just talked about it briefly before we started, that we don't know each other real well. We don't know all about our stories. We cross paths in recovery and sharing our stories and hearing each other speak from time to time. And I have always been attracted to this lady's energy. So grateful for you. And not only to your energy, but to your amazing, just tattoos that have so much meaning. I love them. And you are just a wonderful human being, and so glad to have you here and to be on this journey with you, and would love to hear what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really impressed with what you do. I'm fascinated with podcasts, and here I am on one. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. And we would love to hear, how did you get to this place in your life? Tell us, what is your story?
I think I've always been a seeker. Um, I think that's why sometimes we're known as alcoholics, is
Hmm.
because we like spirits. And I've always been kind of out there. I was reading Edgar Casey books when I was in grade school.
Wow.
And I just always have been fascinated with the metaphysical. Very practical in some ways, but very metaphysical or spiritual
Hmm.
in other ways.
Was your family like that? Were you brought up in that kind of environment, or was this just something unique about you?
No, not really. I mean, my mother liked astrology, and so I've always
Hmm.
been interested in astrology. Our family was not, we went to the Methodist church, so it wasn't fire and brimstone and things like that. So I was introduced to God as a loving God.
Great.
Um, so I didn't have any religious trauma to get over or
Mm.
anything, which
What's that like?
I know. I see that that's unusual in recovery
It
groups.
is.
So that was really not a problem for me. But um, I think my real spiritual seeking began in AA.
Mhm.
I was first introduced to the steps, and um, I got a sponsor, and I started my work. And for me, this is how I like to sum up my journey, is that AA was necessary for me, but it was not sufficient. And I needed more. I was seeking a deeper level
Mhm.
other than just, okay, here's what you did, and here's how you need to make amends for it, and then going about your life. That just, was real interested in some sort of spirituality that resonated with me.
Mhm.
I don't consider myself a Christian. Um, that old white man that sat on a cloud throne in the sky never worked for me.
Mhm.
I mean, even from a child, I never really believed that story. I went to church. I tried to raise my daughter. I went to the Episcopal church
Mhm.
because I really like all that pomp and circumstance. And there again was a loving God, but it didn't resonate with me. And then in 2009, I believe, I went to a retreat. Um, we're so lucky because we have in Batesville, Mississippi, 2 hours from here, down the interstate, we have a tremendous Zen Buddhist recovery place to go. It's a
Wow.
Zen Buddhist monastery in the tradition of Plum Village.
Mm.
And I first saw Thich Nhat Hanh there on a retreat. And there were hundreds of people there. And we were in this big tent. And this little man dressed in brown came walking in, and he just emanated peace and
Mm.
serenity and goodness. And I was so attracted to that. I think I tried to be as close to him as I possibly
Yeah,
could that whole retreat. I want
I
to
would
sit
have
on the
too.
front row. I want to try to walk behind him when we did walking meditation. It was just, I was just mystified by, I want this. How do you get this?
Yeah.
And then seeing how the monks and nuns went about their daily chores and jobs and things with such peace and serenity, and and slow. They did everything slow. And I was used to doing multitasking and doing everything, 9 things at one time. And I think that came from my laboratory training
Yeah.
because you have to do several things at one time and do this and set a timer and walk away and do something else. And my mind was always partitioned like that,
Yeah.
like that. Um, and so I was really intrigued with how I can slow my life down and feel things because I was always just in my head, you know, just always intellectual
Mm.
pursuits. And my superpower was emotional suppression. That's how I got through life. Just suppress everything. Suppression, depression,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. That's what got me into recovery.
Mm.
We or I drank and used substances to treat my depression and anxiety. I think that's how most of us get
Mm-hmm.
started. Um, but anyway, back to the retreat in Thich Nhat Hanh. Um, then I started going to retreats there. And they do have a recovery retreat usually in April. And people from all over the South come. And so I got to be with groups of people that were like minded. And I learned how to meditate there. And I learned how to slow down.
Mm.
And I learned how to listen. Thich Nhat Hanh, there's this thing called 5 mindfulness trainings. And one of the trainings is called deep listening and loving speech. And so we practice that. And that started my spiritual journey. It started the turning inward, looking deeply, seeing what was really there and how it made me react. So that's where it first started.
Mm. The you've talked about even from a child having that intention, that desire, that knowing that somehow there is more. I can so relate to that. And in my later years have learned that it's that intention that sets the ball rolling, where it actually draws us into the future. It draws us to that place, which obviously it has done for you.
It did. I mean, it really made me a different kind of person.
Mm.
I could relate to the world differently. I could relate to people differently. But mainly I could relate to myself differently because I knew myself more after after meditating, after stillness, after being
Yeah.
quiet.
I have developed a meditation practice, which was always such a hard time for me several years ago. But like you, it was when, I mean, I've spent my life in religion and most of my life and pastored a church for a number of years, but
Mhm.
always knew that there was more. Plus, I was not living my authentic life. And it wasn't until coming into the rooms of recovery that I began to get a taste of what my soul was longing for all along. And that's what drew me. But like you said, and I couldn't have said it any better, it's not, it wasn't enough. I that's what my son handed me. And my son is a big follower. I never even heard of Thich Nhat Hanh until my son mentioned him to me. He has tattoos. He's tattooed from, you'd love him. He's tattooed from head to toe. But he considers Thich Nhat Hanh his teacher. And it was the first that I heard of him. But he handed me the book Letting Go by David Hawkins.
Mhm.
And in that book, David talks about, David was a recovering alcoholic and actually was a physician to Bill W. Towards the end of his life, but talks about what happens when we use substances. And we hear a lot in the room as people are like, I'm finally comfortable in my own skin, I feel like I can be myself, I have no fear, and I can get up on stage and do all these things. And we think, as he states in this book, we think it's the drugs and alcohol that are making that happen. But what the drugs and alcohol are doing are covering our lower levels of consciousness, the fear, the anger, the all of that. And we are actually experiencing what's in us anyway. It's just that the alcohol and drugs have covered the lower, so we're experiencing the higher. So what if we could actually deal with those lower levels of consciousness, like you talked about, going within and looking at yourself and doing the work so that you're not addicted to some substance that's going to destroy your physical form, but that you are able to get free from those things.
Exactly. I think my journey began in AA, like I said, where I learned to, remove my armor and get rid of the mask I wore,
Mm-hmm.
because there were always masks. I could kind of blend into any kind of group. I thought that was a skill. I thought it was a superpower.
Yeah.
But it's not, because I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
being my true self and standing up for things that I believe in. I would just go with the flow, kind of. And now I'm a much happier person. I think the meditation really upped my game, because for the first time I could be still. And I don't know about you, but I have trouble being still.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just kind of extrovert, want to do things. I have FOMO. I just want to go. But I'm learning that a lot of those things are distractions.
Mm.
And I don't need those distractions now. Well, some I do, but I don't need them for the most part. I don't need to be. Busyness was my drug too. Workaholism is kind of the acceptable addiction, but it doesn't do much for personal development.
Yeah.
Just being a robot, just going to work and doing. So I was happy that I found a way where I could sit still, because there were lots of things going on in my mind and body
Mm-hmm.
that I was not cognizant of until I could take that quiet time.
Yeah. We and I've had several guests on this podcast that join me on my journey through a program that we did out in Austin, Texas, that was all about emotional intelligence, and it was really getting to the core of those things that were still hidden, and I didn't realize were hidden. And what it took was being in an environment where these divinely, I can't put it any other way, but these exercises that were divinely inspired with this group of people all wanting the same thing. You're in a room with people that all want to see themselves and want to be free from the thinking that keeps them in these places they don't want to be in anymore. And so you're opening yourself up to a group of people to allow them to provide you feedback with what they see in you, and you're able to provide them feedback, and these examples or experiences that they they trigger you. I mean, there's these exercises. It's like the universe developed these things because they trigger you, and the stuff that you didn't know was there starts rising to the surface. And you're able to see it, and others are able to see it, and you're able and open to the feedback. We don't have people in our lives that say, "Yeah, I see this in you. What's going on?"
Truth tellers. I
Right?
call those truth tellers.
Yeah.
And I have some people in my life like that. Now, I don't like it sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but I really feel that I grow from that.
Yeah.
And I went through something similar, like some training similar to that in Costa Rica, and we had this group, and it was about conscious anger. Because as women in this society, in this patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to get angry. You're supposed to be nurturing and a companion, and just not be loud or be out there or show too much. And so I always say this. I think all women in our society have this low level of rage, because we're not supposed to show that. But the conscious anger, I mean, you're doing it, you're getting angry consciously about a certain thing, and then you get feedback from that.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get feedback, it's like, oh, I can resolve that in myself. And that helped me grow a lot.
Yeah.
Back to the AA not sufficient, I did want to say that it's a wonderful program. It saved my life. I'm so pleased. I still attend. I could not give it up for the world. Has a lot of things that I need something more though,
Yeah.
and some of that is, the program of AA is pretty Christian. It was written by white men who were
Mm-hmm.
Christians, and it they patterned it after the Oxford groups,
Yes.
which was a group of people
Very
who
religious
who
group.
wanted to live like first century Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very kind of tight and locked down. I mean, we even say Christian prayers at the end of meetings,
Mm-hmm.
which bothers a lot of non Christians.
Yes.
And I don't, well, let me say that that's mostly in the South. When you go to other places, it's not like that because I've been to AA meetings like all over the world, and they're different. And the South has its own particular kind of brand
Mm-hmm.
of AA, but I I guess that's what I needed, something different, because that was not resonating with
Mm-hmm.
me. So when I started, and Buddhism is not really a religion, it's a
No.
philosophy. It's
Mm-hmm.
a way to live. And it's a kinder, gentler way to live. It's more accepting. Buddhists don't reject anybody or any whole group of people or any race or anything. It's like the whole message is peace in myself, peace in the world. The whole message is it starts with you.
Yeah.
And when you can find peace in your heart and you can find a home in yourself, then you can show that to other people.
Absolutely.
And they can see how that can be for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And the part about, because I struggle with that too. I came in, with a very big religious chip on my shoulder in the AA. And I mentioned in the meeting the other day, it's funny that, the people that come into my life looking for my help are people that also have a big chip on their shoulder.
Absolutely.
and,
Absolutely.
and if it wasn't for, so, I mean, it's like recontextualizing what you see. So I hear you. I mean, I do not like saying, I don't align myself with Christianity anymore either. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't like saying some of those things because in my gut, I'm feeling what others may be feeling who do have a lot of religious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see is, at least for the folks that I'm working with that have, it's brought them where they get to step 3, where they are ready to turn their will and their lives over to the care of God as they understand God. We lose a lot of people because their concept, and that's all God, the word God is for everybody, is a concept, whatever they were brought up with, their conditioning or whatever. And for a lot of people, it is very injurious. It's hurtful. And I've had the blessing of having people in my life that I have been able to help because I have gotten through that. I mean, my eyes are filling up. I have gotten through that and been able to help them to see it differently, and have been able to take others on journeys beyond what we learn in AA, where they're growing spiritually now and they have eyes to see. It is just a miraculous thing.
Right. I think the success of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has been because you can find a God of your own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Still, it's steeped in Christianity, So there's still God and there's still Him and there's still, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
resonate with
Yeah.
that. And you're right, the kind of people, the kind of women that come to me and ask me to be their sponsor are those that are seeking also.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not resonating with me. I need something else,
Yeah.
And I can share my experience with that. And I'm not saying anything derogatory or, degrading in any way about people who are Christians. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about you do you, boo, that doesn't bother me at all. It's just that's not for me.
Yeah. It was for me. I see now, which hindsight's 2020. I see now that it saved my life, because in the 80s, as a gay man, married, believing that I, was living, the thoughts were sinful.
Mm-hmm.
If 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 I did not have the boundaries around me, where even if the things weren't true I was believing, it kind of kept me in a safe place until I was mature enough to make a decision to get honest. Um, I think that I probably would have just not. I wouldn't be here. Liken do some of the stories I see very differently now in the Bible, but I liken a lot of those things to almost like Jonah, the protection of the whale until I can get to the other side.
Right.
So the whale wasn't meant for me to be my home forever, but it did serve a purpose for sure. So I also watched. I mentioned before we started a movie last night with a sponsee called The Shift, and it's Dr. Wayne Dwight Dyer. Um,
Dwayne.
yeah, and he wrote it and was in it, and actually Ellen DeGeneres' wife Portia is one of the actresses in it, and he shares on something else I'm listening to that he actually officiated at their wedding. He did their wedding for them, and he was sharing that with a woman. At some point and was telling him that he did their wedding, and she's like, and you're okay with that? And he's like, darling, I am okay with anything and everything when it comes to love. um and that's the shift.
Absolutely. And I like how the Dalai Lama says his religion is love. And that's all I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just if I could be pure love, if I could be the bright light,
Yep.
you know. And I work at that. That's my intention for my life
mm.
is to be that bright light.
I just heard that there was and I'd never heard this before, but Osho, he was a member of what they call the Baul group, which is, it wasn't a religion, but it was just a group of folks that believed there was nothing else but love. Um, and I have a quote from him. I wanted to read it and get your thoughts on it, but it says, if you have lived this moment totally, intensely, your next moment is going to be still more golden. And that's how life goes on growing. Otherwise, people only grow old. If you have a goal, you'll grow old. If you don't have a goal, you will grow up. And these are two different processes. Growing old, you reach to death. That is the goal. Growing up, you transcend death. Because one who has been alert, aware in each moment, will be capable of being aware even while they are leaving the body. They have lived life. They are not going to miss death either. They will live death too. And death for the one of awareness is the ultimate peak of life. It is not the end, but the very climax. What are your thoughts on that?
Obviously, I don't think this is the only life I've ever had or will ever have, but I do believe that I have to make the most of it.
Mm.
I do believe my soul was incarnated into this body to learn a lesson. And it's about your soul's evolution. And so when I pass on to another incarnation, I'll have all this experience.
Mm.
And I just think, kind of like Ram Dass says, we're just all walking each other home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's our calling, is to be of service to other people.
Yes.
And I know that's when I feel the best in my body and about myself, is when I can be of service to someone else. And AA taught me that.
Mm.
I didn't know that before. I really didn't. I don't know where I missed it, but that instruction didn't come to me. My instruction was like, work hard, be all you can be, do what you can do, strive for the best.
Yeah.
All of that was like drive, busy, go. Nothing about being slow and taking care of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and just learning your lessons.
In that movie we watched last night together with my sponsee, there was a line that said, what we believed in the morning of our life becomes a lie in the evening of our life. And he talked about that the morning of our life being that period of time where we are just all about acquiring things and achieving and gaining knowledge and all of that stuff, and all the things we think are important, we realize in the evening of life that those things were a lie. But we begin to move into the true meaning of life. And you talked about our purpose on the planet, just to be love, to be that difference, to be that change we want to see. And And you talked earlier about the guy in the sky with the beard. And for how long I believed that it didn't matter how bad the world got, that one day we were just going to be rescued. There'd be an answer that would come down from the sky and all would be well. And so you can see where that mentality would cause one, like myself, to just not even bother, not try, and yet the answer has been in us
All
all
the time.
along.
All the time. The
We're
answer
waiting for
is,
God, and God's waiting on us. Where
and
we
it's,
God,
I mean, God's, I think it's inside,
it is. Mhm.
spirit. That's that inner voice, that higher self, that's why you have to take time to listen. Like, what's she saying to me? You
Mm.
know?
We're not taught to trust our intuition.
No. If you don't have data and facts and,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense, then you're not supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been doing these last few years is going places where I'm with like-minded people and I'm learning these skills. I'm learning to be intuitive. I'm learning, I've always been intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning to listen to that intuition now and, hear her voice. I always say there's this old wise woman inside me and I can hear her when I'm still.
Yep.
And I believe that.
And I believe it's always speaking. I mean, even in the simplest things, if we pay attention, if we're in the moment, I will have my day planned, all planned out. And, I will say, I need to run to Whole Foods for something. I need to do this. And I'll be driving down the road and I'm going to go to my house in Rollingwood. And I just feel this, no, you need to go to Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that ridiculous? But I follow it, and there's someone there
It
that I
turns
cross
out
paths
right.
with. It's like, what the
Yeah.
heck? Even
Yeah.
down to the minute detail like that. If we
That's
just
why I
listen.
love being a sponsor or being a mentor to younger women. I really feel that's where my calling
Mm-hmm.
is because at that point in my life, late 20s, early 30s, I mean, I was fighting for my life. I was, I had a full time job. I was going to school full time working on my PhD, and I had a daughter, a young daughter, 10 years old, and I was a single parent.
Mm.
I mean,
Wow. So you get it.
I was really fighting for my life,
Yep.
and trying to do the best I could, and knowing that I'm the only one here to make a living for my daughter, and I have to be a role model to her.
Mm.
Um, and when I work with women in that age, I just, I needed a mentor. I needed somebody to talk to. I needed an older, wiser woman that I could ask questions to. Because when I was just completely overwhelmed and lost, I didn't really have anybody in my life like that. One time I was in an AA meeting and I was, whining about how hard it was and this problem and that problem. And after the meeting, she came up to me and put her arm around me and she said, "Honey, I just wanted to tell you that there's a high survival rate for motherhood." And I needed to hear that. I was like, I'm not going to survive this. But I needed to hear that from
Mm-hmm.
her. And so that's where I got my mentoring
Yeah.
in AA. And if I can be that for someone else, and I mean, that would be wonderful.
I know that you are. I wanted to just go back a minute to meditation. I want to hear what your meditation time is, because I started my meditation journey. I would sit on the floor of my closet in my bedroom because it was just the quietest little spot. I had a blanket and a pillow, and I'd put the pillow in the back and sit, and it would just be silence. And um, I I had some wonderful experiences. What 10 minutes? I thought it was 10 minutes, and it was almost an hour. Things like that were happening, and then I started reading more, and then I started this kind of it's called Waking Up. It's an app that I listen to, and I've let me fast forwards. I had a dream the other night, and in my dream, my baby finger of my right hand fell off, and and there was a little bit of blood, not pouring blood or anything, and it dropped down to the floor. I reached down, picked it up, and held it onto my hand. And when I let go, there was no blood, and it was completely whole again. And I was doing some looking up, about dreams. And it just to summarize, it said that there may be something very simple that's having, but yet having a profound impact, that I'm neglecting. And it brought me to that, that I went from these just quiet, just me and source for, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, to a brief 10-minute listening to an application. And, and so I went back to my previous routine, and it has made, just in the last several days, and it has made such a difference. I'm just wondering what your practice is, if you could share that with us.
Well, I have a home altar,
Mm-hmm.
and I have all my things on there. I love my crystals and feathers, and I have a picture of Thich Nhat Hanh. I have a picture of my ancestors, which is my family, and my continuation, which is my daughter and my grandchildren. Um, I also have a calligraphy that Thich Nhat Hanh did, and it's one of my most prized possessions because
Mm.
he died in 1922. I mean, that's wrong. In 2022. I'm sorry. Um, and on it, he wrote, "Breathe, my dear." And I can hear him say that in my
Mm.
head. I've heard him say that so many times. If all else goes wrong, breathe, my dear. And I also have another of his sayings that is a life guide for me. And it says, "Are you sure?" For any situation, I might think, they didn't invite me to that because, I don't know why, but anyway, I'm mad about it. And I have to ask myself, am I sure they didn't invite me to that because of the reason I say? Or am I sure that somebody doesn't like me because I just get this vibe?
Mm.
And when I tell that to myself, most of the time it's no, I don't know for sure. And that's really helped me talk myself off the ledge a lot of the times. And it's really given me some motivation to move forward
Yeah.
a lot of the times. But I do, I light some candles and I light some incense because I like that stuff. It's not necessary. And it really, it adds to my meditation
Mm-hmm.
experience, but for other people, maybe not. I sit on a cushion and I have this Plum Village app. That's what the Thich Nhat Hanh's first meditation center is called Plum Village, and
Mm-hmm.
it's in France.
Yep.
And I've been there before, and it's amazing. That's why we're so lucky to have the meditation center here in Mississippi. It's called Magnolia Grove. There are 3 meditation centers in the whole United States that are Thich Nhat Hanh Plum Village practice ones. One's in New York, as you might expect. The other is in California, which you expect too. The third is in Mississippi.
That's amazing, and I didn't know about it.
Um, People ask Thich Nhat Hanh, why Mississippi? His whole story is about reconciliation. That's his whole focus. And he says, Mississippi needs a reconciliation.
Mm.
And I'm hoping for that. I'm really hoping for that. But meditation, I do chant sometimes, and I set a timer, just and I just sit there and try to breathe.
Mm.
And I use beads because I learned that you hold the bead, it's a breath in and breath out. You move to the next bead, a breath in and breath
Mm.
out,
Like
because
that.
your mind is always going to wander.
Sure. Yep.
One time I went to a meditation class and I told the teacher, I said, I can't do this. She said, why? And I said, because I keep thinking about other things. She goes, oh, that's normal. You're not going to have a completely blank
Mm-hmm.
mind. You're not going to get this download. Well, you might sometimes, but traditionally, you're not going to get like this aha moment. And Thich Nhat Hanh says meditation is to relax your body.
Yeah.
When I relax my body and I connect my body and intelligence through my breath, then I can really listen internally. But I can't do that till I rest.
Yeah. I remember you've probably heard this story before too, but about the Buddhist monk who was struggling with meditation and with the thoughts and was getting frustrated and angry. And his teacher would be like, what's the problem? He's like, I go to meditate and, someone brushes into me or I hear a noise or whatever. And he insisted that he would find this place that was absolutely quiet, that he'd be able to go out and meditate. And he found this little spot in the woods. And even in this, and he had a little bit of time in silence, and then a flock of birds came, and got angry again, and then he just got into this little boat and went out into this middle of body water, still water up, where he was away from everything. And for several days in a row, he had complete silence. And he said, "I finally found what I need." And then one day, he's in his boat, just sitting there, and he hears the water. The water's moving around, and he hears some noise, some bubbling of the water. And he looks, and he sees a boat coming toward him, and he starts feeling that anger again. It's disturbed my meditation, and he starts yelling at the boat. He's like, you're going to crash into me. Turn around. And no response. The boat keeps coming and eventually hits him. And he's just totally irate that he was taken away from his meditation. And there was no one in the boat. And when he went back and told the teacher, he's like, exactly, there's no one in the boat. You just need to go within yourself.
Exactly. That's what I was going to follow up with is that's what meditation is about. I can go inward through my breath. I can breathe, calm my body, relax my mind, no matter what's going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
You just sort of incorporate those, like the birds singing or someone's in the other room doing something. It's just a way to calm myself, and no matter what's going on. And that to me, that's the whole purpose, is no matter what's going on, I can be calm within myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes meditation is just, I used to do this before I went into work, is sit in my car and just do 3 long, deep, slow breaths. I still do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it calms me in some way that no other thing can.
Yeah.
Just when I need to. And your breath is always accessible. I mean, you always have it with you. If you don't, then you don't need to meditate or do anything else because you're dead. But it's such a valuable tool to me. I think that's in yoga they call it pranayama, because prana is the life force, and that's your breath.
It's our source.
It is.
That's our reminder.
A lot of people say
doing this.
That's God.
That's right.
Your breath. And my yoga teacher says, and I love this, I've adopted this, that there's one God, there's many paths to God.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about. And I think, we need to bring that message if we have a different way to God.
Yeah. And I did hear a story one time too about the people around. It's like God was on the top of this mountain, and there were all these different paths up the mountain, and yet there was this one person that wasn't making any progress because they were going around the bottom of the mountain telling everyone else that the path that they chose was wrong. Yes, but I believe there are many paths. I am so glad that you were here with us today. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, your wisdom. You have a beautiful spirit, Libby, and I'm so glad to call you friend.
Thank you for asking me, because I do want to share this message, especially with women, and that, we are valuable. And this culture teaches us sometimes that we're not, we're second-class citizens, and, just be the goddess that you are, because you are.
Yes, you are, and I honor you. Thank you so much for being here. As always, you can reach out to me as well. My webpage is theawakencollective.org. My email is there, coaching services, including a complimentary one-on-one call, YouTube channel, all of that fine stuff. So come and check me out. We'd love to have you leave a comment, send an email. We'd love to hear from you and see how you're doing, and we are here to help. So if there are any needs, that you may have. We want to be available to help you. Thank you again to Danny and to Audio Alchemy Productions and to our special guest, Dr. Libby Spence.
And thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Until next time, my friends. Love and kindness always.